Hello and welcome to Current Wave. I'm your host, Ayla Wayman, and in this podcast, we meander through our shared delusions and stumble into ethereal shit talking as we dive into the waves of the human experience. I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy the ride. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Current Wave. I'm really excited for our guest today, Ana Hito. Yeah, Ana and I have met each other through my mom, actually. You two are good friends, which has been really fun to have. I really have loved seeing her become friends with so many. I mean, she's just like a gregarious, friendly person. So she has a lot of friends, but I really love your relationship with her. It's
Man,
really
I love your mom so much. I mean, I love her so much that I had her at my baby's birth. I mean, that should
yeah.
just say enough. But she really is. She just reminds me of the New York part of me, but then she has this openness to her that reminds me of the here part of me. So it's just like
Mhm.
I love her. And I feel like it's such a funny way that I mean, I know your mom because of your brother, who I
Right.
was friends with, and I
Yeah.
know your brother because of boarding school. So it's just a funny way
Yes.
that we all met each other.
I know. It really is, but it's
Yeah.
sweet. I love that way that life works. And I love that. Well, how would you introduce yourself?
I'm like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I feel like I'm in this new phase of my life where sometimes where I wake up and I'm like, wait, what do I do? Who am I?
Really?
And that's how I would I'm just in a whole new phase of discovering all the things, but also feeling more settled in who I am. But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like I've done a lot of different things that
Yeah.
are, but like all kind of rooted in the same, in this, in the essence, they're all the same. I feel like I really strive to be surrounded by luxury, which sounds tacky and horrible and gross and like these gold garbage, but it really isn't. And when I mean luxury, I don't just mean like there are two sides to luxury. There's the side that you may just hold an Hermes handbag, and then there's the other side of all the people that made that bag and the cow that died for the leather that nobody really
Mhm.
sees. And so, like,
Yeah.
I'm really into the full word of luxury, of understanding the whole process to then enjoy the handbag. And I think
Yeah.
that's why I live here now, but also why I worked at Goop, and also why I
Yeah.
like, enjoy writing and enjoy creating recipes that are with real ingredients, and why I did the It's a Dinner series that was so seasonally based in location. And I think that's like truly why I live here, because I just really enjoy the like luxuries of life, which is like
Yeah.
waking up and seeing the ocean and fishing for our own food and having the most incredible uni that would cost $40,000 anywhere else, but like, you just get
Yeah.
it out of the ocean. And it all sounds really pretty, but that's a handbag perspective, but like the
Yeah.
actual work that goes into living a life of luxury is not
Oof.
glamorous at all.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is like why I'm so excited to speak with you because of your perspective and the way that you view and then create a life. I think it's really inspiring to people, especially right now. And I love all of that. I also love that you're sort of just in this new phase of who am I, which I think that that opens up so many doors of creation and
Yeah.
potential and possibility. And I think that the whole world, I feel like, especially in the United States and the Western world, has a collective opportunity, I think, to transition our identities into something new right now because everything's changing so much with technology, with the world is just moving really fast. And I think letting
Yeah.
go of the past and creating something new is the energy of the moment.
Yeah, or I don't know, sometimes I think that's the way I want to look at why I'm here, and then sometimes I'm like, wait, am I just running away from everything? But then I am, and that's also a different perspective that's interesting too, you know?
Yeah,
But yeah,
totally.
it is an interesting time where there is such, I just feel when there's so much hate in the world, it actually allows a lot of space for vulnerability and connection. Whereas like
Mm,
I feel sometimes when people are giving off, even for instance in social media, I feel the trend used to be really beautiful photos and that's all you're supposed to post is a great photographer is supposed to take your photos, and now we're seeing the trend become, oh, more real stuff. Okay, show the garbage in your pantry. Okay,
yeah.
show us the real stuff. And I feel we're getting to a place where people want to see more of the realness behind things and not just the beautiful image. And that, I guess, goes back to what I was saying about the whole concept of luxury, too. It's not just that beautiful thing that is this luxurious moment or item or thing. It is this bigger picture of how do you get there, and how do you really, you can't really enjoy anything unless you understand the struggle to get there. And I think all this
Mm,
hate is that struggle to get to a really beautiful place,
mm. That's, yeah,
if that
I'm
makes
so with
sense.
you. That does make sense. I feel like that really was very well spoken. So I want to kind of like frame where you're tuning in from and talk a little bit about where you are and
Yeah.
Rapa Nui. And yeah, you're on this podcast in a very remote, very special place that you have a deep
Yes.
connection to. And I would love for you to share about the island you're on and how you got there and your connection to
Great.
this.
Yeah. So I'm currently calling from the most remote spot on the island, not just in the most remote island in the world, but also the most remote spot on the island. Me and Tomas, who's my partner, we have two girls, and we have this ranch here on the island, and it's a cattle and horse ranch. We also farm, but we farm for ourselves. We don't really sell any of our stuff. I do want to get into preserving and doing a little bit more homestead selling, but anyways, that's
Amazing.
neither here or there. But um so Rapa Nui is about 4,000 miles off the coast of Chile in the Pacific Ocean. And it's about 62 square miles, so like the size of Manhattan, but in a triangle. And I got here because my dad is an indigenous native Rapa Nui. And actually, he met my mom in California, but Rapa Nui has always been this important place for me. I have a lot of family here. My dad's one of seven, and family is just really important here on the island. Everybody's derived of 12 different clans. And so it is just a different kind of community here that I've felt throughout my whole life, whether that's been visiting or living here. It's just a different, in good and in bad ways, a different kind of community. I grew up sort of between two different worlds. My mom is American, she's Jewish, she's from New York, so totally different background than here. So I grew up between that world of uniforms and boarding school and Passovers and just ice cold houses, and my grandma always drinking a martini. And then coming here, it's a totally different vibe. All the norms and mannerisms and things that we would think of as polite are not at all here. It's interesting, the other day, my mother-in-law, I don't even know what I asked her, but she said something along the lines of like, oh, the best way to have amazing children is to not sit down, to not make it a point to sit down at the dinner table every day. That is not important. What's important is you
Mm,
should be able to eat wherever you are. You should be able to, it doesn't matter what time or place. And to me, from an American perspective, sitting down at a dinner table every night is so foundational. That is what us Americans think of as the perfect family. Is that's how you
wow,
make up
yeah.
the kids and all this, that's where you bond with your child, is around the dinner table. And and here that's not at all. So that's a good example of the difference between these two very different cultures. And I didn't really live here in my adult life until now. I mean, until like 3 years ago, because I was working like in corporate jobs and was so like enveloped in the whole world of the US. And then I came here sort of on vacation and was like, oh, wait, maybe I want to live here. And so I've
Yeah.
slowly, like within the past 3 years, spent half and half time in the US, but now I've been spending more time here than in the US. And since Tomas isn't, the past two times he's tried to go to the US, he's been denied entry, which is very frustrating. And now the visa process is like shut down. It just makes it harder for us to travel because I don't want to travel with two little kids by
Yeah.
myself. So I am now, because of the immediate effect of all this immigration stuff in the US, it has definitely affected me personally. And now I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm living here. I got to be good with being here. And it's kind of made me have I think a healthier perspective of living here, because it's hard sometimes to do the 6 month or 4 month, every 4 months switching
Yeah.
between here and the US. It's just like so different that sometimes getting back here or getting back into the US, it's like takes me a minute to like calibrate, to like, feel comfortable, to like not miss things. And so now just
Mm.
like this mindset that I'm here, I'm building our ranch out here. We have lots of projects we want to do. We have lots of things we want to get done. Like, that is exciting in a different way than it was before, thinking about going back and forth all the time.
Yeah. Amazing. Excuse me. My little lingering cold. Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's so much in what you shared, and arriving in such a special place that you have this deep connection to through your dad's side of the family, and sort of how life kind of, we direct our lives in so many ways and things just choose us and happen.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're really embracing this moment where there's, yeah, these challenges, these parameters that are being put up with Tomas not being able to come here, and kind of choosing to allow that to direct your life in a new direction and allow you to settle and ground in the place that you're in for the time being, at least. And yeah, I mean, what an amazing place to be, and to have this connection to, and to have this really different way of living. And I love what you shared about sitting down at the table, and having, also because of kind of what you've done in the past of creating meals and things where you are gathering people around a table, which I want to
Yeah.
get into a little bit in a minute. But I love the other view of raising children in a completely different way. And I think that that is part of why I'm also really drawn to this conversation and your world, because of the way that I was raised too. And you know that because of knowing my mom, and like that
Yeah.
side of her, that's the same as is like that New York side, that
Yeah.
certain way of being. And she raised us in Colorado because that was her wild version of
Yeah.
raising children on the land, very little technology. She was just like, go, run. And I'm
No,
seeing,
that's like, I mean, I feel like for me, that's why, well, first of all, that's why I love your mom and we connect so much. But actually, if I like strip all the things away, if I like strip all the reasons why I don't like living here, and I strip all the reasons why I like living here, the real reason I'm here right now is because I have a 2 year old and I have an 8 month old, and I think it's really, really, really important to raise them in this environment. Not because the island, like in an educational sense, does this amazing job, but actually it does in a not programmed way, or it really is the education I want to give my kids. Is freedom to be who you are, to be confident in who you are, to know how to live off, not that them needing to know how to live off the land is what they need to know in life, but
Right. Yeah.
just this real childhood that I can't give them in the US and I can give them
Yeah.
here, and that's why I'm here, is because I if I wanted to replicate the childhood that I can give them for no dollars here, I would have
Mm.
to be spending millions and millions of dollars a year to be able to give that to them in the US. And that to me is why I'm here. Is because I
Mm.
just feel, I mean, I'm only on Wi-Fi when we come down here to Tomas's house, which is 1 or 2 hours, if even a day. And there's just, the kids here aren't on screens, they're playing outside. It feels 40 years behind the rest of the world in this kind of magical way.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't live in town, but of course, if you go to town, there are all these modern things as well. People are on cell phones, people are on TikTok. Like there are these things,
Yeah.
but where we are on the island and the people we surround ourselves on the island, it doesn't exist. And I think it's just kind of magical to be able to have to give my girls a healthy relationship with the world and technology, and just to give them that baseline that I feel like we took for granted because that kind of technology didn't exist for us, and to be able to grow your own soul without being fed all this interruption. I think for children from 1 to 7, it's so important for them to have their consciousness not be interrupted by outside noise.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's vital and
Yeah.
so important. And I think a lot of people want that and are curious about that because we're realizing how important that is, that fundamental development. And it's so special. And I hope that there's also a resurgence of that in the US, in the world
Me
of people
too. I just like,
choosing
it's
something
really
different.
hard. Like I mean,
It's so hard. It's hard for
I
me
think
as
there
an
are,
adult.
yeah, I think there are pockets where that can exist, but that it doesn't, it takes a community to make it happen. It doesn't take one parent. It can't be one parent, because if it's one parent, that kid's going to be so resentful because they're going to go to school
Yeah.
not knowing anything that the rest of the kids are talking about because
Yeah.
they didn't have that technology. And then there's that bullying factor. And I just feel it's so impossible. It takes a real community to be, this is not happening, we're not doing this. And that's sort of, I guess, Waldorf school is a good example. Their
Yeah.
community that really is structured in principles that are like, no TV, no phones, blah blah blah, but still you live in this real world, and
Yeah.
that is impossible to ignore. And you go to, I mean, you go to CVS, you go to the hardware store, you go to the convenience store, there's a TV with all this junk on it. That didn't, I don't really remember that as a kid, going into every
Yeah.
place and having screens everywhere always. Or you go to
Totally.
the gas station to pump your gas and they're showing you like
Great.
TikTok, and you're just sort of like, okay, so everywhere we go, we need to be ingesting this garbage. And don't get me wrong, I love nothing more than to sit on the hammock and scroll through my TikTok. I
Yeah.
love it. But I also understand that it's this drug that I don't want to give my kids access to
Yeah.
yet. And I want them to be able to have an have inner sense of who they are outside of that. And
Yeah.
I find myself as an adult, and why I also enjoy living here is it's really hard as an adult with all of this stuff at our fingertips, with Instagram, with TikTok, with AI, and all these phantom possibilities of like, I mean,
Mhm.
every time I'm on social media, I see like, I made 50K in 24 hours, or all because of social media. And it's
Yeah.
hard to then be creative, I think,
Yeah.
internally, because either I'm seeing all these things that are inspirational, and yeah, there's an aspect of in a Pinterest lens only, yeah, there's an aspect of seeing the stuff as inspirational and it's sharing news and sharing information, which ultimately is rooted in, I think, who we are as human beings is sharing knowledge. But I
Yeah.
also think that it is detrimental to you and your soul internally because you don't actually know what you want and you don't actually know how to be creative because you're just seeing it all always and you're not actually thinking for yourself what art, what story do I want to create. And so being here on the island, it's really nice because I feel it has allowed me to sort of tune into that part of me that I turn off because everything's so readily available and I can see all these things in front of me. And why create? Because I
Mm,
read it and see it all anyways, kind of thing. So it's been really nice to have that be part of the slow pace of life here.
wow. Yes. I love that so much. And I think that that's really what is such a that orientation is so special. I'm so happy that you have that and want more of that for myself because I
I feel
totally
like
agree.
everybody ultimately at their core wants that, but gets
Totally.
confused in the in between of
Yeah.
what they actually want. You know what I mean?
Totally, but we are just inundated and infiltrated all the time. As you said, the gas station screens are crazy to me. You pull up and you're watching commercials and weird things, and
Yeah.
you're like, can I just pump gas without a screen?
No, I
It's
know. It's crazy.
unbelievable. And that amount of input does make it so hard to hear our own inner voice. And I think it's so wise of you to protect that for your children and for yourself of, okay, who am I really and what do I actually want to create from that inner place instead
Right.
of always creating from the outside. And like there is that fine line. I love being inspired by the
Me
world.
too.
And as you said, you do too. I love seeing things. And if we're just consuming all the time, we don't have the space and time to create or to
Right.
create something that's actually
Right. Right. And I don't
important.
know. And to be honest, I am sitting here with that perspective because you know, I'm thinking about I'm thinking about what I did 5 years ago, and then I'm thinking about what I'm doing now. What I did 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, or 8 years ago was by far leaps and bounds more exciting, faster pace, more socially interesting and acceptable. And I feel now I'm sort of in this place where I'm recalibrating. I'm figuring out what it is that internally is going to give me the peace of mind that I want, the joy that I want to experience, and the luxury of life that I ultimately really, really want. And I don't think you need to wait till you're 65 and retired. I think there's a healthy way to figure out how you can live a balanced life of luxury and also of like reality.
Yeah.
Um, and I just am in that space. Also, I have little kids, so I'm not in a soup. I don't feel like what I want to do is be putting a lot of energy into creating because I want to put a lot of energy into pondering and thinking and
Mm,
examining like, who am I and what do I want to do and where's my next step and what is that. And I really feel, I mean, we're doing things here on the ranch and I want to expand things, so I really feel I want things to be rooted in here. But if I think about what I was doing with It's a Dinner, which was like my long, table dinner series that I did for 6 years. I did it while I worked at Goop. I did it while I worked at an app in New York City. I was the last Saturday of every month that I did them, and they sped up. Sometimes I did them multiple in the summer. I did them multiple times a month. I did them in the Hamptons. I opened up 2 restaurants with it in Maine. Um, but if I really think about it, like what I was telling myself and what I was telling the world was that I really wanted this to be seasonally focused and are based on the environment we're in. And I did that. But I also was mirroring so much of the trends and things I was seeing on social media and in the world that were in line and aligned with my ethos of the whole brand, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's was, some of the things that I did were because I wanted the like, and I wanted that, and that was successful for me and it worked. But I don't know if it was me being creative in me as a creative person, or if it was me copying creativity to
Mm,
appease the audience. And I don't know if
yeah.
that's wrong. I don't think it is, but
Yeah.
in whatever I want to do next, I want to be creative out of me, out of who I
Yeah.
am, and I want to create what I'm doing and what I'm building out of my own thoughts and my own desires. And that can also mean that, yeah, I'm seeing something on Instagram or Pinterest that I want to replicate, but I don't want it to be so I don't want the driver to be the trend.
Yeah. I mean, incredible. I'm so excited to see how that evolves for you and what you
Yeah,
do
I'm like,
create
we'll see how that
from that
evolves.
space. And yeah, you're in this moment where you have really young children, and I'm sure
Yeah,
that is your absolute focus, and it gives you probably time to be in that pondering state and reconnecting to yourself because you're in this moment where you're, I'm sure, deeply dedicated to just raising them, and that takes so much time and energy. And
yeah.
I imagine that through this process, you will come to this new place and create from there.
I feel like that's what'll happen, or it'll just happen. But like, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I should also mention that we live on this ranch in the middle of the ocean, essentially, but like we are totally off the grid. So we like get our water from a well that's an ancient well that's been here for like 4,000 years. And we literally walk in, we get a bucket. Everybody's like, why don't you put a pump in there and pump it up? And that sort of like defeats the purpose. Also, this well has been here for like thousands of years longer than we have, and like, who am I to put this modern technology in this old system? And that would be disrespectful in my perspective. And so like, we get our water that we drink from a well. We collect rainwater for showers and washing dishes and laundry, and we grow our own food, and we have our own animals, and we fish for our food every day. And it's really a hard life. It is, as glamorous as it sounds to say, it's hard work, and it's harder
yeah,
with two little kids. And so the space to do anything outside of that is not really totally available. There's just not a lot of time to be creating anything besides just the basic survival, which is
yeah,
honestly what I need right now. I like that my whole job and my whole life is around putting food on the table, or not on the table. Um,
on the rock.
and and taking care of my girls and drinking water. Like, that is
Yeah.
such a zoomed in
Mm,
life. Whereas there are people in this world that I see on Instagram, or that I just know personally, who are doing a job, going to work, having another side project, have two kids, picking them up, all these
yeah,
things, like all these aspects to their life that it ends up being so zoomed out, that's also interesting and cool. But for me, that's not the reality of where I'm at in this life here. And I think this zoomed in version has allowed things to slow down in a really nice way. And I think it also has given me a lot of perspective of what actually matters. And to me right now, it's not doing anything else but being with my babies and doing our little life here. I would like to build out our ranch a little bit more and have a few little cabins so people can come stay and experience this same kind of life that we're living, which I think is a nice breath of air
yeah.
for people externally who might want to be a part of this for a second. They don't need to live here forever, but just to be able to
Yeah.
like participate in understanding what it's like to live like this, and also living like this, it just reminds me constantly, like, oh, we aren't supposed to be processing all this stuff all the time. We are just supposed to be doing things in this slow, informative way. Oh, and doing that is a lesson. And like all these things we sort of zoom past in a fast world are integral learnings I find here. So to me, it's that's the magic in slowing things down.
Yeah. It's so incredible, and I really do think we're craving that as this like antidote to how fast and intense the world is. And it's like that's how humans have lived for so long. You're just like coming back to the root of like what it is to be a human on earth in the most simple way.
No,
Raising
exactly.
children, getting water,
No, exactly.
cultivating food. It's so in us and basic, and only for a very short period of time have we been living any other way. It's really
Exactly.
only since like the 40s and 50s that we had this big jump into like the Industrial Revolution, I guess. But
Electricity and machinery
yeah,
and
it's
refrigerators and all these things didn't exist 100 years ago, or maybe they just were starting to exist 100 years ago, but it is so new and it just has sped up so fast. And I can imagine it just getting faster and faster. It's one of those things where it's, you roll a ball downhill and it starts slow and it just
yeah,
goes, the snowball effect, it just goes faster and faster.
yeah.
So it is sort of nice to understand, to be able to have made a snowball, roll it down a hill, see it roll all the way down, and then go back up to the top of the hill and be like, I'm not going to make a snowball. I'm just going to sit here. And that's sort of where I'm at is, I'm just like, I see all of this stuff moving so fast. And it is, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's an envious side of me. And there are moments where I think to myself, should I just move back to the US permanently and, you know,
Yeah,
do get another corporate job and do that, because that is familiar to me and that does feel comfortable and feel secure in this made up secure world we've created, like,
right.
and all these things feel so, like, sometimes I do sit and I'm like, well, this is not me. I like restaurants and the clinking and clanking, and I like those things, and that is
Yeah,
me, that is also true, but I also like the me that can be good with me not just chasing whoever I want to be. Does that make sense? I think that there's so much imposter syndrome. There's so much, I see, for instance, on Instagram, on TikTok, I see these moms um who are just doing everything, just absolutely
yeah,
everything in this modern world, and I think to myself, well, that is just not, like, that seems so cool and interesting because I'm watching them and that they are successful in this lane of being an influencer, and that's really cool and I like that, but I don't think I like that for me,
yeah.
is what I'm realizing. I
Yeah.
thought I did.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, yeah, everything you're sharing, I think, is so of this moment and questions that we're all pondering. And I think we've been touching on this in a lot of ways, but I wanted to really get into it because I think also I've been thinking about this so much of like, the way that we constrain ourselves by thinking that there are certain rules that we have to follow in society or how to be successful, what luxury looks like, what to create a life. And I think of you as someone who really makes their own rules. And because of that, you get to make something totally new and different and true to who you are. And I feel like even before you're in this phase that you're in, you've always been doing that since I've known you of just, oh, I'm going to rewrite the rules and do something else. And I feel like I want more people to have that liberty with themselves of like, there are no rules of how to build a
Right.
life. And I feel like we've been
Right.
really tied into this narrow view. And I'm curious if you want to speak to just
Well, like, I
where
think
that
about this. Yeah, I think about this a lot because sometimes I think to myself, there would be nothing better than if I just, like, there are moments where I'm like, damn it, all I want is to be an army wife and love home goods and just have my life figured out for me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But then there's the real part of me that's no, I need to be the car in front of the snowplow in the snowstorm. I need to know how hard
Mm,
it is really. And
yeah.
I by like knowing how hard it is to drive in the snowstorm and not sure if my car is going to make it through, I need to know how things really work to then
Yeah.
understand, okay, this is how I want to move forward. And then there are moments where I'm, well, I should just freaking wait for the snowplow to come and I'll drive behind it and the road will be clear and I'll know what I'm doing. But that's just never been me. And I think I can appreciate the people who drive behind the snowplow. That makes so much sense to me. Yeah, your life is easier. You listen to what people say and there's a wisdom in that, and you kind of know the foot that comes in front of the next. Like where for me it's I feel really insecure in situations that I don't know why. The why is really important to me, and the figuring out the why is the hard way, is what I've
Mm,
told myself. Is it's harder to figure out why than to then just listen and do. And I thought, I went to a very preppy boarding school and everybody was going to college, and that's the thing. And it was, it was taboo to think of not going to college. And why would, how uneducated and how dumb,
mm,
and you're above that and sort of thing. And then I went to college for a week and I was like, wait, but I just did that. Like I already lived with people in boarding school and I just did that and I don't want to do that again. And I don't even actually think you're learning anything here. And I
mm,
just didn't really find it. I found that I was listening to people who said they knew how to do it, but I didn't feel that resonated for me. And so then I went out and got a job and started working at Goop. That was my first job out of my 2 weeks of college, was working at Goop.
I love
And
that.
that to me was a way more educational experience than I think any college could have been, because
Yeah.
I actually learned things in a real space in a real time with real job. It was a real experience. And for me, that's always been the driver. I want to experience things in a real way. So maybe
Yeah.
it's really intense that I live here and I have to get my water every day. And I know that's not for everybody. And most people would think I'm insane. And I think I'm insane probably more than most people do. But I also know myself enough to know that if I didn't figure out how hard it really is, then I don't know how to do the rest of it all.
Yeah.
I don't know how to enjoy that luxury.
Mm,
I enjoy to go to a five-star hotel, which I did for many years as part of my job and also just part of my life, is fine. You sit there for a day, you're like, okay, great, I'll order off of this. Oh, I'm relaxing, I'll read a book, that's nice. But it's very surface level. And to really understand that enjoyment and to really feel feelings, I feel you have to really understand where things come from. And being
yeah.
here is that for me, is being able to feel all the range of emotion
Ugh,
in things.
yeah. I mean, it's just like immersing yourself into life, learning
Yeah.
through truly living and pushing yourself into these ways. I love the analogy you used as a car in front of the snowplow. And it feels that's such a beautiful and maybe very intense way to live. And yet I feel
Yes.
that's the energy that I am inspired by and love and admire. And just doing life for ourselves and not for that external thing that we keep kind of touching on of where is the seat that we're living from? Is it the soul? Is it this deeper sense of ourselves,
Well, I
or is
think
it
that like
from
people
the
create
external?
this like scenario around like, there's a right way to do things to
Yeah.
get this thing, but like what is that thing? And also that there are like people who grew up with nothing on food stamps who become the most famous people in the world. There are people
Yeah.
who have single moms who take care of them and they become the most famous people in the world. There are people who are nepo babies and they become the most famous people in the world.
Yeah.
If 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 that is what you look at as success, like external clout and becoming the best in your class, there
Yeah.
is no answer to how one gets. There's no 1 + 1 = 2 answer to how you
Yeah.
get there. I think everybody has their own path. And there, people could look at me and be like, well, you have all these opportunities in the US you could give your daughters. But then I could look at them and say, well, I have all these opportunities here I could give my daughters too. It's just sort of the perspective at which you look at things. And I think like
Yeah. Totally.
being able to change your perspective is what I have found to be like the most important thing, to not just like have one tunnel to look through, but to like really create a kaleidoscope of different things to look at and look through, and to create that perspective switch is important and has been for me. And just understanding that there is this external judgment that doesn't really matter, but it can weigh a lot.
Yeah. Totally.
And like it has weighed a lot for me. I mean, I'm saying all of this and I am practicing it all, but I also feel like there are big moments where I'm like, I want to, like I said, I want to be an army wife that loves home goods. There are moments where I just really want to not have to figure it out from the bottom, but that's just not
Yeah.
who I am as a person. And so like because of that, I have to listen to myself and like do it this way.
Yeah.
Um, and I think for everybody, there is a different starting line and a different finishing line. And it's just sort of like figuring out in this weird world that we're in who you are at the start and does that align with the finish.
Yeah.
That for me is where
Totally.
I'm at. Is I need to just recalibrate who I am. And now being a mom and all this stuff, I need to like remember who I am so that I can finish it out the way I want to. Not that I'm
Yeah.
dying any minute, but
Yeah. Life is precious and fragile,
yeah,
and we're here. I really do think we're here to figure out who we are and why we're here and what that looks like, and throw ourselves into whatever that is as best we can. And
yeah,
that does look really different for all of us. But I think that I love this conversation so much because I do think that it's sharing this aliveness, this being very attuned to that energy. And yes, I think that also there's those moments where we want to be told what to do and who to be and how to be in the world, but listening to that deeper pulse that all of us have underneath that, that's really guiding us toward our unique expression and unique creations. Who
right,
knows what we each get to bring into the world when we listen to that deeper voice, that deeper knowing that is almost always our own path when we really tune into it. And it's so fun to see people who do that. I think all of us feel that inspiration, like we're drawn to people who walk those paths because you can
right,
feel that power.
right. And I feel the thing that's been confusing is with social media, you sometimes, I find for myself, people are always like, well, why don't you share more and do more? And you could be a real influencer and you could be, you could make money off of your life and you could do these things. And I think that ultimately for me, what I'm realizing is like there was a part of me that was like, yeah, I should do that and I want to do that and I want to, yeah, that sounds great, and how much money you could make just by doing nothing and living your life.
Right.
But what I'm realizing is, first of all, it's not by doing nothing and just living your life that you're making money. You're working really hard. And I don't
Yeah.
really know if I want to turn my life that I'm really building to enjoy into a business for other people's enjoyment. And that also is, I think, hard to understand in this world of your success of who you are internally is not based on the outward affirmation of the world.
Mhm.
And I think that's really hard for me personally. Sometimes I'm like, I want that, I think, but I actually don't. If I listen to myself, I don't need that to be the marker of who I am. But in this world that we live in, you see all these people that portray these things you want or you desire or you wish or you envy. There are all these emotions that come up in 20 seconds or in 15 seconds, and that creates a whole lot of emptiness at the end because you just don't even know what it is that you want. And I think for me, I see success being measured by social media as opposed to
Yeah.
success being measured by who you feel you are,
Mm,
which I think loses a little bit of authenticity at the end of it. But I just sort of go back to, okay, if we were all living in a world where none of that existed 40 years ago, 100 years ago, like what are
yeah.
the things that would create somebody to be driven? You know,
Mhm.
those are the questions I like
Right.
to ask myself and figure out that for me within me. And I think everybody that's different. That's a different answer, you know, but those are the things I end up thinking about here because I just don't have any of
Yeah.
that.
Which is so incredible. Like, that is such a potent question to ask ourselves, right? If we're taking that clout, that social media, that external validation and recognition out of the equation, what would we actually want to do and create if that wasn't part of it?
But
Like,
even bigger, it's that, but then even bigger in a way where you're okay, the brand I work for cares so much about their email send and their reel post, and I need to create 2 TikToks and a this and a that, and we need to get all these UGC, you know, we
oh my
need to get all
God.
these UGC influencers, and we need to, and then you're sort of like, okay, well, what would this brand be if I worked there and none of this happened? Would I have a job? Would I, you know,
Yeah.
like, would this brand exist? You know, is this product actually worth it, or is it just because it's a pretty box and lots of people on Instagram like it? Like, you know what I mean? It's
Totally.
so meta at the end of the day, but
Really is,
it
yeah.
is this interesting thing to think about of, okay, if you took all of that away, even to think about our mom's generation, none of this, sure, maybe they had email and a phone, but you were calling people, you were sitting and
Barely.
talking to them.
Yeah.
Life was so much slower. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because my life here is so slow that I could tell you the things I do in a day and you would be shocked. You'd be like, I did that in 30 minutes in my morning. Um,
Yeah.
and in a weird way, I feel like like the slower life that I have, I feel like the days are I just feel like everything moves so fast, even though I'm
Yeah.
moving so slow. Like the things that I'm doing are slow, but for instance, a normal person in the US with a normal job who is in their 30s will either order something to be delivered to their office or have made their lunch, and you will sit for 15 to 30 minutes and eat your lunch. Here,
Yeah.
that doesn't exist. You have to go get your lunch. And all of a sudden, lunch turns into a 6 hour process, which feels
Yeah.
really slow, but it happens so fast because you have this goal of eating lunch. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
happens really
Well,
fast. Life happens really fast here, even though the process of having lunch is so much slower. And I kind of feel in reverse, the faster things happen, the slower the life is. Does that make any sense? Like
I
I
think
was living my
well,
corporate US life, I felt like things were just going by so slow. I was like, when's
mhm.
President's Day so I can have one day off? You know what I mean? When is summer so I could have 2 weeks off? It just felt like so slow in this interesting way. And now that I've slowed my life down, things happen really fast.
Yeah,
um,
that's so fascinating.
but yeah, time is so interesting that way.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, wow. I'm living this. I want to touch briefly, like we have in some ways, of kind of your earlier career. And you mentioned you went to college for 2 weeks and then you got a job at Goop. And I think that really paved this way of creation and I want to touch on that. You also already touched on it's a dinner, but I want to talk about those things from the lens of just creation and playing with ideas, because I also think that you are someone who really does that in this really cool way, which we're talking about kind of the deeper impulse behind those. But for people who have ideas and want to make them happen and want to learn and maybe live from more of this vantage point, I would love for you to kind of talk about things you've done in the past before this
Yeah.
moment and your impulses to create and how
Well,
you
I
do
feel
that.
like that is also why we're so rooted because you grew up in this Waldorf school setting. I grew up similarly. And I think when you are a young kid and you are given and told to just go play and create and imagine and be, and that is such a gift, such an incredible gift. And I think for me, it's always been going back to that. And I was lucky in my mom lived a health food store. And I just grew up in that kind of environment of
Yeah.
being aware of what you put in your body. And I should also say, here on the island, that's really important. It kind of goes without saying that that is just the way of life. You live out,
Yeah.
you're outside, kids are outside 90% of the time, 10% of the time they're sleeping inside. You're
Yeah.
outside all the time, and you're creating, you're inventing, you're building, you're seeing, you're doing, you're just with nothing. You know what I mean? With
Yeah.
rocks, because that's all that's here.
Yeah.
And that, just having that as my foundation, has just kind of guided me in this real honest way of wanting to always get back to that, to get back to a creative place, to get back to inventing, making up, playing pretend, decorating, and just really always having sort of this playfulness and imagination behind everything. And so, yeah, when I was at Goop, I was really young, and I I think I felt rooted in Goop because it was this wellness brand, and wellness was so much a part of my life. Not that I
Yeah.
have ever been an image of wellness, but I grew up and love being healthy and eating well, and my
Yeah.
mom had a farm, and I just always felt like being able to be privileged, which it is a privilege to understand even the concept of wellness. That's a huge
Yeah.
privilege. And it's a privilege in the US in a way that is so unfortunate. And it in
Yeah.
here on the island, it just kind of is. Wellness just
Yeah.
that's baseline kind of thing. And then everything is cluttered on top of it. But yeah, it's just I've always been rooted in that kind of eat well, eat with the season, care about your space, care about how you function. And the clearer you think is because of the stuff you put inside, and who you surround yourself with and what you create with. And so working at Goop kind of just felt like, oh yeah, this, I didn't think of this then, but now in hindsight, I can say, oh yeah, that made a lot of sense. I was creating recipes and working with food and I loved grocery. I did all these things that I just normally love doing. And so it felt really organic, and I did it well because it was just what I had done for a long time. And before I worked at Goop, I started on my mom's farm. It sort of started out of nothing. I didn't charge people. I would just make these dinners from the produce on my mom's farm and invite friends from all over, whether they were coming from upstate or the city or Connecticut or whatever, and they would come over. And at that time, I had finished high school. So I had all these friends from boarding school who lived all over the place. So they would all come to my mom's farm, and we would have dinner, and I would cook, and it would be very seasonal, and it would be really fun. And we'd hang out and bonfire. And it was just this really good feeling. And then I was, oh, I should just do this, and started doing it more and charging people. It was $30 or something. I would charge people, and it would be dinner from the farm. And then it just kind of unraveled into this whole thing of, okay, we're focusing on seasonality. It's going to be
Yeah.
$200 a seat. It's going to be 5 courses. You're going to come in, you're going to be able to get a tour of the farm. You're going to have a seasonal cocktail. You're going to have this whole immersive experience in the season you're
Yeah.
in. Because I do think that for me, something that's always been really important is feeling this heldness in a space, feeling held in a space is really
Yeah.
important for me. And to be able to feel held, I think you need to have this prerequisite of being able to just be you. And doesn't matter if you dress up or dress down, or it you shouldn't walk into a place and feel like, ooh, this is too stuffy for me, or ooh, I'm too dressed up, or whatever it is. You should just really be able to feel who you are. And I think the easiest way to do that is tapping into the season you're in
Mm.
and incorporating the environment as well into that, and creating that really held space, which is due to the environment. So that was the It's a Dinner experience for me. And it just kept unraveling and unraveling and turning into, incorporating brands I really loved and creating magazines and just expanding. And it was really fun. And I did it throughout working at Goop and throughout working at my job after Goop. And then after that, COVID happened. And I was like, I'm just going to focus on that, focus on It's a Dinner and do that. And it was really amazing. But for me, I think the thing that I always come back to, even when I'm in a creative rut or whatever, I go back to that younger educational self of me, of like, okay, what can I do that's in a real time, not going to be a course that's going to take 6 weeks that I need to sign up for, not going to be something that's going to take me 10 years to finish, not something that's going to take me even 6 months to finish. What can I do in real time that is going to just get me in a place of, get me back to that younger self where I can be imaginative, creative. And so that looks like different things for me. Sometimes it's, oh, I want to screen print. For a certain period of my time, it looked like I was screen printing after work, then
Mm. Yeah.
knitting, then welding. There have been so many different iterations where I'm curious about something and then
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it. And then I figure out how to do it. And for me, that is the young me playing outside with leaves and rocks and creating like fairy castles. It's like not
Yeah.
knowing something, being curious about something, and then creating something out of that curiosity. And so like I think anybody can do that. Like
Yeah.
whoever you are is like you can okay, if you love your core power yoga class, you can then figure out, oh, I want to make my own yoga mat, or I want to create my own yoga bag carrier, or it can be so who you are. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be this, you don't have to replicate anybody else's thing. You can figure out who you are and what you can just do. Or, oh, I want to give gifts to everybody I know for Valentine's Day. So I'm going to go get some supplies, but you can go and make whatever you want is ultimately what
Yeah.
I'm saying. And it just kind of starts with a thought, and it doesn't have to be big and it doesn't have to be grand. It can be a tiny little thing that you do that just opens that door to creativity that
Yeah.
takes no time. And I feel like people prioritize now in this like healthy wellness world that you especially live in California, and that we're all like sort of like becoming aware of like, okay, you need to eat well, you need to exercise, maybe you need less screen time. But like, I think one of the things we're really forgetting is like, you need to be creative, and like, you need to
Yeah.
figure out how to do that. And that could look like a ceramics class on Tuesday night. That could look like you're writing you're remembering how to write script. You know what I mean? It could look like anything, but I think
Yeah.
it just is as important as what you put in your body, and how you exercise is exercising the muscle of creativity. And to not have it come to not have that creativity be stemmed from something you see online, I think is
Yeah.
an extra challenge. You know what I mean? To be able to be
Totally.
like, I want to do this because I want to do it, not because I saw it on the internet and I think it's cool to do.
Yeah.
But that being said, you could think, oh, I want to make everybody I know Valentine's Day cards out of paper mache or whatever it is. Then
Yeah.
you can look up on the internet, which we are lucky to have, like, how do I paper mache? Those are the reasons why the
Yeah.
internet's amazing. And we get lost, I think, sometimes in understanding how to use it in a productive way.
1,000%. I love that. And I'm really feeling that in my own self right now. I'm having a lot of creative impulses that are directly connected to my childhood and to things that I used to do and haven't done for a long time. And I feel like that's such a perfect way to hone in on that energy of what you loved when you were little. And a lot of people say this, but it really is such a beautiful resource to remember and just be like, okay, getting back to those our childlike selves, that purity, that true essence that you're protecting in your girls right now so that they have that and that they're going to be able to move from that place when they're older because they actually have a connection to it that's not
Right.
influenced by the outside world. It all is such a full circle of
Yeah.
creation.
And I feel when people say their childlike self, sometimes that can feel such a woo woo statement that is
Yeah.
hard to interpret. You know what I mean? People don't know what that actually means. But I think if you're going to put
Yeah.
words to it, I think it means figuring out who you are internally and figuring out how to be creative. Because that's it. That's it. That's all you figure out when you're a kid. That's all you do is I'm seeing them do it. All you figure out is how to put the one hand in front of the other to crawl, or how to, how to pick up this rock and put them together. All you're figuring out is how to be creative and how to be yourself. And so
Yeah.
that ultimately is that childhood self that you want to get back to, is figuring out who you are and how you can be creative in who you are. And to me, that is where I'm at, is figuring that out as well again. And I
Yeah.
think there are check-ins that like every few years you probably have with yourself of like, who am I? What do I want to do again? And that's where I'm at
Right.
currently, is in that space of like, okay, this is, I know all this information, but who am I and what is it that I want to do and how can I be creative? And like, for me, creativity has always been totally aligned with curiosity. Like
Yeah.
curiosity and creativity might as well just be the same word, because you have to be curious about things to in
Yeah.
order to even exercise the muscle of creativity.
Yeah.
At least that's my experience.
Yeah, totally. I think so. That curiosity is the driving force that makes you be creative because you're
Yeah.
trying to understand and figure things out and learn and experience.
And
And
making mistakes while doing all that is the only thing, in my opinion, that bumps you up to the next level of
yeah,
being more
totally.
creative.
Yes, I love that. I
Like, I
feel like we
don't,
touched,
yeah.
yeah, go for it.
No, go ahead.
Or, I mean, we're touching on this in this whole conversation, but I just wanted to sort of end with, and we really did start with this, but when you're looking at ahead to this year, what you're excited about, what you're leaning into, what you're cultivating.
Um, well, I feel knowing that I'm going to be more rooted here this year,
Yeah.
it's kind of been really nice to have really basic, small things that I'm looking forward to, because I
Mhm. Yeah.
think big grander things are exciting, but I want those things to happen to me, and I don't want to like happen to those big things. I want the big thing to
Mhm.
happen to me, and I don't want to have it be this weight of expectation. And
Yeah.
so I'm really excited to just be fully immersed here. I'm really excited to like plant some more vegetables this year. I'm really excited to continue building out our ranch. I'm really excited to have people come visit us here. And that's kind of it. And I'm excited to keep doing the small things I'm doing. But yeah, big projects and big things, I'm I'm sort of not into that right now. Creating, making, thinking, doing big projects or big things like that. I'm into the slow little moments right now.
And brings us back to all of it of just
Yeah,
being.
and going back to the beginning, that to me is the luxury of life, of being able to wake up and look at the ocean and eat fresh fish every day and have
Yeah.
amazing vegetables and be able to take a sauna and a hot bath with rainwater. Who gets this? This is what I think to myself all the time. And then I'm like, this is also really fucking hard. So I think like
Yeah.
luxury isn't just the enjoying, it's the understanding of it all.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I feel like it's
I just want to
really,
hang and chat with you all
I
day.
know. This is like what I love so much and why I was so excited to speak with you because I feel like you're on this wavelength of returning to what is true and what is human and what is simple and that view of luxury. It's like simplicity and exploration and creativity and moving from a deep place in ourselves.
Yeah, and I feel like there is just in everything there's luxury, and it's just sort of about understanding that for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where I think these rules and systems get in the way is one person might think something's really luxurious, but society says it's not. And so just a
Yeah.
reminder to remember what you think is luxury. And that
Yeah.
could just be putting your shoes on every day, you know? Because that is
Truly.
a
Yeah.
luxury. We used to not have shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really bringing it back down to earth and to that. Yeah. I'm just hearing this thread that's deeper and connecting to that and
Yeah.
living from that place and building a life that's really yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want you to come visit.
I want to come visit so much. Like, really.
Off off the record, I'm pregnant again, and I told your mom, and I'm coming wherever you are, and I need you to be here for the next birth.
I want
So
to come. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
um,
We really need to come there. And I studied abroad in Argentina, and that's like my most favorite
no.
region of the world.
Hey,
It's
why is South America so underrated? Underrated.
especially, yeah, I haven't been to Chile, but Argentina, I
Okay.
was just, how is no
Chile,
one here? This
Argentina,
is
Uruguay, amazing things happening over
amazing.
there.
Yeah. And another friend actually in Uruguay right now. So,
Oh wow.
so many reasons to go.
Selling. So many reasons.
Um, okay. Well, thank you so much for being here and for this conversation. I'm just so grateful. I loved it so much.
Me too. I love it extra.